Good evening and welcome. I would like to call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Newport News School Board for Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. On behalf of the members of the school board and the superintendent, I welcome each of you present and watching. Our quorum is present to transact the business of the school division. Tonight, we will hear citizens' comments regarding Huntington Middle School rezoning plan. This will take place during the public hearing portion of the agenda, which will be held at 7 p.m. We will continue with the agenda until such time. If you would like to share your comments with the board, please fill out a speaker's request card located on the table as you enter the auditorium. We will begin tonight's meeting with the invocation and pledge to the flag. Here to do the honors is a student from Dretro Middle School, Miss Sophia Cyphers. Miss Sophia, she'll come forward and deliver the invocation, and then she'll also lead us in the pledge to the flag. So, Sophia, would you please come forward and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then afterward you can lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Okay. Right where the microphone is? There you go.
All right, Rocco.
I'm Sophia, and I'm 10 years old, and I go to Dutro.
Hey. Welcome.
Welcome. You have a poem?
Yes, A Teacher's Lament by Callie Dacos. Don't tell me the cat ate your math sheet and your spelling words went down the drain and you couldn't decipher your homework because it was soaked in the rain. Don't tell me you slaved for hours on the project that's due today and you would have had it finished if your snake hadn't run away. Don't tell me you lost your eraser and your worksheets and pencils too, and your papers are stuck together with a great big glob of glue. I'm tired of all your excuses. They really are a terrible bore. Besides, I forgot my own work at home in my study drawer.
That's cute. Lead us in pledge.
I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
She got us moving.
Miss Sophia, you didn't tell me what you're going to be when you grow up. Come on back up real quick. Tell us. What are you inspired to be?
I want to be a poet because I really love poetry.
Oh, no. Yes. Well, let me tell you, you did a magnificent job. You had us all in tears and laughter. Outstanding job. A job well done. So thank you again for coming out and participating. And here supporting Miss Sophia tonight is her family members and their school family. Could they please stand and be recognized? The board appreciates the encouragement that you have given Sophia, and we thank you for bringing them out here to tonight's meeting. Sophia, again, an outstanding job well done, and we look forward to you and your books that you're going to be writing and poetry you're going to be writing in the near future, I believe.
Yeah. I'm writing one for the PBS competition.
Congratulations.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. Job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so next we have, after that enlightening opening, I guess next we have our board recognitions. Dr. Parker, would you join me up front?
Yes, sir.
That's a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
I'll go take a break.
I will have a child just like I said.
Good evening. Very hard to follow Sophia, but I'm going to do my very best, okay? Good evening. I have the honor of presenting this month's recognitions. Schools that utilize the new Jostens Renaissance leadership curriculum combine the study of leadership principles with the action of building a healthy school-wide culture and climate. The curriculum includes 9 units of instruction that covered such topics as school culture and climate, individuality and self-branding, teamwork, leadership mindset, communication, and other tenets. Each unit consists of both traditional style class instruction and project-based and service learning activities. Each month, Jostens Renaissance Education recognizes the best examples of students and staff at participating schools who are making an amazing impact on the culture of their schools. We're proud to share this evening that one of our very own has been named the National Renaissance Student of the Month for February 2020. Please join me in recognizing Antonio Martin, a senior at Heritage High School. Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin's nominator said he does a lot for the school and in the community. He also shows a lot of school spirit and makes everyone at Heritage feel welcome. He is the epitome of school spirit. He's a member of the National Honor Society, the citywide SCA, Students Against Destructive Decisions, the Principal Advisory Group on Education, the Superintendent's Student Advisory Group on Education, and he serves as a student ambassador and a member of the varsity volleyball team and the varsity basketball team. And if that wasn't enough, he's also part of the 12 Basket Feeding Ministry and serves as a volunteer with Port Mobile Homeless Shelter Services as well. His principal says that if you looked for the definition of the 5800 family in the dictionary, you would find a picture of Antonio with a huge smile ready to serve his school and his community. Mr. Martin is showcased in the Jostens Renaissance Monthly National Newsletter and on the Jostens website. After graduation, he plans to pursue a career in physical education or exercise science and sports medicine. Did I get that right? Okay. Mr. Martin, congratulations on this well-deserved honor.
His family.
While he's back at his seat, I want to just take a moment to recognize the family members that are joining Antonio this evening, as well as his 5800 family from Heritage. Will you all please stand and be recognized? Thank you for joining us. Thank you. The Dorothy McCullough School Nutrition Award celebrates Virginia school divisions that have gone above and beyond by operating all available federal child nutrition programs and achieving stellar participation in the school breakfast program. The award is named in honor of former First Lady of Virginia, Dorothy McCullough, in recognition of her efforts to end childhood hunger in the Commonwealth. We're proud to share that for the 3rd year in a row, Newport News Public Schools earned this award presented by No Kid Hungry Virginia. In recognizing the 2019 winners, Mrs. McCullough said, "We're thrilled to celebrate these school districts for their ongoing commitment to making sure that students can access the meals and other resources they need to succeed. It takes a dedicated team to ensure that our students have access to nutritious meals while at school." To accept this recognition on behalf of the Child Nutrition Services team, please join us in congratulating Executive Director of Child Nutrition and Wellness, Kathy Alexander. Child Nutrition Supervisor, Debbie Pascal. Area Cafeteria Supervisor, Christine Del Grosso. And Area Cafeteria Supervisor, Christine Lemaster. To qualify for this award, our Child Nutrition Services team exceeded the criteria governing meal service for breakfast, after-school meals, and summer meals. Newport News Public Schools serves a nutritious breakfast and lunch to all students free of charge. Our staff also serves after-school meals or snacks for after-school program participants and our athletes. And during the summer, 3 meals are served to students participating in Spark and other programs. And free lunch is provided at several sites for youth. Only 15 school divisions in the state earned this recognition for 2019, and Newport News Public Schools is the only school division on the peninsula to earn the award this year. Team, congratulations on this honor, and thank you for all you do for all of our students. Have you come down front? Please pass along our congratulations to the entire child nutrition staff. Tonight, we also have the pleasure of acknowledging the dedicated members of the Newport News School Board. Governor Ralph Northam has proclaimed February 2020 as School Board Appreciation Month in Virginia. This observance was first established by the Virginia School Boards Association in 1989 to encourage public recognition of the roles and responsibilities of school board members and to highlight the importance of public education. The proclamation reads, in part, whereas the education of Virginia's school-age children is the foundation upon which the economic, social, and intellectual strength of our Commonwealth is built, and whereas locally elected and locally appointed school board members play an important role in our representative democracy, and as the decisions of the school board directly influence instruction in Virginia's public schools, and whereas school boards affect the development and future of our children and ensure that our students are prepared to compete in local, state, national, and global economies, and whereas school board members devote themselves to providing high-quality education for all students in the Commonwealth. Whereas this year's theme, Excellence Through Equity, reflects the top priority of local school board members as they advocate for public education with local, state, and federal leaders. And whereas local school board members work with parents, businesses, education professionals, and other community members to create educational vision. Whereas School Board Appreciation Month recognizes school board members for their leadership and support of a public school system from which the entire Commonwealth benefits. It is signed by the Governor. As constitutional officers of the Commonwealth, Newport News School Board members are responsible for setting educational policies, employing school personnel, providing buildings and equipment, operating a transportation system, and dispersing school funds, among many other duties. Their job is not an easy one, but our school board is committed to serving our entire community and ensuring that all students are given the opportunity to excel through education. Each of our school board members has a certificate of honor from the Virginia School Boards Association at his or her seat in recognition of the commitment and service on behalf of the students, staff, and citizens of Newport News and the Commonwealth of Virginia, and a gift from the superintendent and Newport News Public Schools students and staff. Please join me in saluting the members of the Newport News School Board. Board members, again, we thank you for your service.
Yeah, yes, I can do it at the end. Do you want us to bring home certificates?
Okay.
members. This week is School Board Clerk Appreciation Week in Virginia. See, that goes well with recognizing the school board.
That's right.
Each February, the Virginia School Boards Association designates 1 week to recognize and acknowledge the work and assistance that clerks provide to school board members, superintendents, and the school community at large. School board clerks are responsible for keeping records of meetings and documenting all official proceedings of the school board, among many other duties. This evening, we acknowledge our clerk of the school board, Tiffany Moore Buffalo. Would you please come forward? Ms. Moore Buffalo maintains a complete and accurate record of all school board proceedings, including maintaining the board's online meeting portal, Board Docs. She also maintains the school board's calendar, coordinates and schedules their professional development, and serves as a liaison between the school board and the public. Ms. Moore Buffalo, on behalf of the school board, administration, and citizens of the community, thank you for your dedicated service. Congratulations.
Again. All right.
All right, one more.
Again, congratulations to all of tonight's honorees. The school board will take about a 6-minute break so that our honorees and their guests may leave if you choose to do so. During this time, our viewing audience will have the opportunity to take a look at this month's school board spotlight. So we'll stand in recess for about 6 minutes. Thank you.
Using circuit boards, computer coding, and digital audio, 5th graders at Greenwood Elementary are bringing their research presentations into the 21st century. Instructional technology coach Lindsay Smith and media specialist Lisa Chambers collaborated in designing an engaging research project that allowed students to communicate their findings through creativity and electronic tools. Using their weekly library time, students worked in pairs to complete each phase of the elaborate project. After researching animal adaptations, which satisfies multiple Virginia SOL requirements, the students began scratch software and reading from their own scripts. Students recorded 5 audio tracks describing interesting facts about their animals. On the poster itself, each team built pressure-sensitive buttons with conductive foil. After attaching makey-makey boards to their poster with alligator clips, the students used coding to designate which audio clip would play when the buttons were pressed. By completing their projects, the students expanded their skills in researching, teamwork, and problem solving, while also gaining valuable career insights to computer programming and network services. If you ever need to know how music impacts the growth of plants, how clean your drinking water really is, or the best brand of popcorn to pop, students in Newport News Public Schools have the answers for you. At the 39th Annual All-City Science, Engineering, and Technology Fair, over 200 young scientists presented their groundbreaking discoveries. At Heritage High School on a Saturday morning, 60 professional scientists, engineers, and educators volunteered their time to judge the wide range of topics that middle and high school students spent weeks researching and testing. In each category, students eloquently presented their findings, answered questions from the judges, and were offered suggestions to improve their projects. 55 of these students have been invited to the regional Tidewater Science and Engineering Fair at ODU in March. While the traditional science projects were presented, 10 middle and high school teams competed in the STEM Engineering Design Challenge. Using their math and physics knowledge, each 4-student team worked together to accurately launch an object into a precisely placed cup. Gildersleeve Middle and Warwick High Schools were the winning teams. For many students, this type of learning and self-driven exploration will open doors of opportunity in the sciences for years to come. When it came time to learn about buildings, teachers at all 4 First Step preschool programs in Newport News Public Schools made the learning process engaging, creative, and relevant for the 4-year-old scholars. The unit of study on buildings started with a tour through each school's neighborhood. Students at Marshall Early Learning Center explored a wealth of history and culture as they identified shapes, materials, and colors visible in the construction of museums, libraries, churches, and houses. Thanks to Newport News police officers, students stayed safe from traffic while making illustrations of their observations. At Watkins Early Childhood Center, employees from W.M. Jordan Company made a special visit to help the inquisitive pre-kindergartners learn about the people who construct buildings, some of the tools they use, and how they stay safe on a construction site. Students at Lee Hall ECC deepen their exploration of the subject matter by dressing the part, constructing their own creative buildings, and trying their hand at some of the various tools used in construction. As the unit of study came to an end, parents were invited to each school to celebrate their students' learning. At Denby ECC, families participated in the learning process together, while using a range of blocks and building materials to construct their own unique structures. Throughout the entire unit of study about buildings, the creative curriculum encouraged students to utilize their developing skills and rich imaginations to begin building their own foundation for future success. Our educators continue to study their trade while setting a wonderful example to students for being lifelong learners. At Carver Elementary, 30 classroom teachers participated in a Tech Expo to learn firsthand how to effectively incorporate new technology into their daily teaching. Carver's instructional technology coach, Shannon Floyd, organized multiple hands-on stations for teachers to rotate through. In the library, they explored the many offerings from Osmo, including engaging games with math, words, coding, and art. Down the hall, teachers investigated the world of computer coding with multiple robots and makey boards. While in another classroom, teachers learned how Adobe Spark, Book Creator, and augmented reality books enhance literacy and creativity skills among their students. Educators from the technology and instructional STEM departments lent their time and expertise to model the technology and illustrate how to effectively utilize each tool in the classroom. Students from Crittenden Middle School offered a student's point of view in using technology while demonstrating their own level of proficiency. Teachers from all grades attended Carver's Tech Expo, including administrators, specialists, and special education teachers. Some have already begun using the new tools in their classroom. By participating in the expo and utilizing the available technology, teachers will gain valuable professional development points towards their teaching recertification.
Consent. This is the regular.
Do
Regular meeting.
I thought we go right. I thought we go right here.
They're ready.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome back, and hope that you enjoy the school board spotlight. At this time, it's at 7 o'clock, and at this time we will have a public hearing on Huntington. Is that correct? So tonight we will hear citizens' comments regarding the Huntington Middle School rezoning plan. Again, if you have cards, please fill them out. And at this time, we will do a presentation of Huntington. Is that correct? So, Dr. Pohl, would you please come forward?
Good evening, Chairman Hunter, Vice Chair Searles Law, members of the school board, and Dr. Parker. I'm James Pohl, Chief Academic Officer for Newport News Public Schools. The purpose of this presentation is to review the phased-in rezoning request for Huntington Middle School. As you recall, during the January board meeting, the school board voted to begin a phased-in enrollment back to Huntington Middle School at Heritage High School. In order to complete this action, there must be an attendance zone change to reestablish an attendance zone for Huntington Middle School. This change would take effect over a 3-year period. During the 2021 school year, 6th graders would follow the new zone. For the 21-22 school year, both 6th and 7th grade students would follow the new zone. And finally, for the 22-23, all grade levels would follow the new attendance zone. This slide represents the zoning change that was approved in 2018 to accommodate the current academic plan for Huntington Middle School. This would be phased out over the next 3 years. This slide represents the zoning change that will be phased in over the next 3 years to accommodate the needed change to reestablish Huntington Middle School at Heritage High School. Just to note, it's the same attendance zone, just combined back together. In an effort to complete this task in a timely manner, we would like to request the board consider taking action on this item following the public hearing this evening. Thank you for your time. Mr. Hunter, I now turn the meeting back over to you to conduct the public hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Pohl. So at this time, the board will hear comments regarding Huntington Middle School rezoning plan. The board considers this an opportunity to listen to your comments. Please understand that we appreciate and will consider your feedback. We also ask that you comply with our 3-minute time limit. As you begin your comments, a green light comes on. A yellow light signals that you have 30 seconds remaining. A red light in the beep indicates that your time is up, and we would ask that you would bring your comments to a close. So at this time, as you hear your name, please come forward. We do have some cards. We have first card, Ms. Janie Bazemore.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you know, my name is Janie Bazemore. I'm a longtime supporter of Huntington Middle School and an advocate for education and for our youth. I want to thank you all for the vote to bring our students back to Huntington. I know that many are concerned about the fact that our middle school students will be assigned to Huntington at Heritage. And Huntington, wait a minute, I lost my place. So my students will be assigned to Huntington at Heritage this fall and beyond in order that we may keep Huntington Middle School active as we await rebuilding. It is our duty to be concerned for the welfare of our youth, but it is not our place to plant doubt and fear. First, young people are resilient. The concerns that people are raising are legitimate and have been around for years. How do you calm those fears? By realities. The reality is that the attendance of middle schoolers with high schoolers is nothing new. Prior to the inception of the middle school concept in Newport News, 8th graders went to high school. The students look forward to the day that they will go to high school, especially those going to Huntington. The fears, the concerns can easily be quelled by strong administrators. Administrators like the former W.D. Scales at Huntington High School, who set the rules and he enforced the rules. And he was one of those that said, if you break the rules, he promised you that you are not only going to go home for a reason, you're going to go for a season. So we will need appropriate security, strong administrators, and staff. And the most important thing is letting students know what is expected of them and enforce that. If we do this right, the students are not going to fear being at Heritage. They will develop a desire to want to get to the high school level. Our children will be fine because we will ensure that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more cards? Are there any more cards? Are there any more cards for the public hearing? There being none? No cards. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second that motion.
You heard the motion and the second. A time for the question. There being none, Ms. Buffalo, please call the roll.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mr. Hunter?
4.
Mrs. Stroh's Law?
4.
Dr. Best?
4.
Ms. Alger?
4.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Motion carries 7-0.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to move to add the Huntington Middle School rezoning plan as an action item for the agenda tonight.
You heard the motion. Is there a second?
A second.
You heard the motion and the second. A time for the question. There being none, Ms. Buffalo, please call the roll.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mr. Hunter?
4.
Mrs. Stroh's Law?
4.
Dr. Best?
4.
Ms. Alger?
4.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Motion carries 7-0 to move Huntington Middle School plan to action.
Mr. Chairman, I also move to approve the Huntington Middle School rezoning plan as presented.
You heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
You heard the motion and the second. Time for the question. There being none, Ms. Buffalo, please call the roll.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mr. Hunter?
4.
Mrs. Stroh's Law?
4.
Dr. Best?
4.
Ms. Alger?
4.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Very good. I think that the hearing is continuing to close. We will then go back to our regular agenda, which is item number 2. And at this time, during our meeting, we provide time for the public to address the board. These are scheduled at the early part of the agenda and also toward the end of the meeting. The board considers this an opportunity to listen to your comments. Please understand that we consider your concerns and get back with you at a later time. Again, please comply with our 3-minute time limit. As you begin your comments, a green light will come on. A yellow light signals that you have 30 seconds remaining. A red light and a beep indicates that your time is up. And at that time, we wish that you would bring your comments to our end. And we do have cards, so as you do hear your name, would you please come forward? Rhonda Wagner.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Parker. I would like to preface by saying I still do not like public speaking. My name is Rhonda Wagner, and I'm standing before you tonight doing triple duty. As a parent, a teacher, and the NNEA president, I am requesting that you ask City Council to fund the renovation at Denby High School, allowing the Aviation Academy program to continue next year. As a parent with a child in the program and another one about to begin next year, this would be devastating for them, particularly my oldest, who is now in his 2nd year in the program. As a child with a learning disability and an aptitude for problem solving with his hands, this program has given him success in areas he frequently doesn't experience in core class settings. My younger son is gifted with the same condition, and we were hoping that this would ease his transition into high school next year. As a teacher, I am deeply concerned that the roughly 400 students currently attending the program will now be left wondering where their high school path will take them. I don't doubt that the parents will also have this question. As the president, I am an advocate for children and educators and deeply believe in doing no harm and putting kids first. This decision is not in keeping with our efforts to keep kids first. While I realize that the state may very well cut the funding for the program, leaving NNPS in a bind, we owe it to the kids and their families to put them first. Please request that our Newport News City Council step in, do the right thing, and fund the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Janie Bazemore.
Here I am again. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please, as far as Denby Aviation Academy is concerned, let us not let this go the way of Huntington. Let's get on this right now. We don't want to see this closed. I want to thank you all for hanging in there throughout this totally unnecessary process that we had to go through of begging City Council to do the right thing for Huntington. The city is still holding us hostage for their vision of a Huntington campus. But you must stay vigilant and steadfast and not allow the city to scrap the plans that you and the citizens have developed for a new Huntington. It is not the City Council's job to determine, plan, or design the school. We're glad to see some progress in the project, but you as a board and school division must not allow the city to take charge of this project where they do not belong. I will let them know as well at the next City Council meeting. So if you don't want me telling them that, you all let me know, okay? And as always, Huntington Middle School shall rise again. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Next, we have Miss Pam Hall.
Good evening. My name is Pam Hall, and I live in the Southeast community. Thanks for keeping Huntington in the forefront. Out of sight, out of mind. We need to stay focused and not allow the bells and whistles the city is proposing to distract us. Stay strong. We have your back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any more cards? Are there any more cards? Are there any more cards? There being none, we will continue with our agenda. Item number 3, our consent agenda, 3.01 minutes from our regular session, January 21, 2020. 3.02 minutes from our work session, January 21, 2020. 3.03 minutes from our special meeting, January 21, 2020. 3.04 minutes from our special meeting, January 10th, 2020. 3.05 financial reports, revenue and expense, January 2020. Child nutrition services, January 2020. 3.06 personnel report. 3.07 budget transfer. And I think that's it. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the consent agenda as read into the record by the chairman.
Second.
You heard the motion and the second. At this time, we'll have the question. There being none, Ms. Buffalo, please call a roll.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mr. Hunter?
4.
Mrs. Searles Law?
4.
Dr. Best?
4.
Ms. Alger?
4.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. So item number 5 was our action item. We had one that we previously approved for the Huntington Middle School rezoning plan. We will move on to items number 6, reports and information. 6.01 WHRO presentation.
Chairman Hunter, Dr. Parker, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight. My name is Bert Schmidt. I am the president and CEO of WHRO. With me is my vice president for education services, Elmer Seward, who's new to the board. You were accustomed to seeing Brian Callahan for many years, and I got the new Brian behind me with any backup. For those of you who don't know, I come to you every other year with a report as you're one of the 21 school divisions that literally own the license to WHRO. It's the only model of school divisions owning a public TV and radio station in the entire country. We were founded in 1961 by 2 school divisions, and today we're owned by 21 of them, adding just Surrey and West Point this past July. So I've provided to you, as I do each and every year, this annual impact statement. I believe you have hard copies at your desks. I'll just go through the highlights very briefly for you, and of course, if you have questions, I'm happy to take them here or at another time. And looking at page 1, leadership here at Newport News has been amazing for many years, and Dr. Parker continues that strong leadership. And I want to thank him in particular for connecting us to the assistant superintendents. We're now regularly meeting with those folks as well, which really helps make sure the folks on the ground are learning about all the products and services that you're going to hear about today. So thanks to everybody on this page for all their wonderful leadership. On page 2, the resources we provide to teachers. First off, eMedia VA. We've had a contract with the Department of Education to provide this service for about 8 years now. This is a repository of digital learning objects. It could be video games, audio, apps, lesson plans, really anything that's digital. It's all correlated to the Virginia Standards of Learning, and we have partnerships with national organizations like Smithsonian, National Archives, Library of Congress, and also lots of Virginia organizations bringing the best digital content to your teachers for free. We also do lots of training. You can see in the report that 62 of your teachers had eMedia VA training this past year. We also do special topic forums at the station where we bring in experts from Apple or Microsoft or all these various other organizations where your teachers can get professional development. You can see 10 teachers took advantage of that. And we also have an online professional development service called TeacherLine, where we provide recertification and graduate credit for your teachers. We have a relationship with JMU where teachers can get that graduate credit by going online and taking about 80 various courses that we have available for your teachers. And on page 3, we do some other professional development opportunities. We've been working with teachers on flood mapping and coding. And coding has become a really big deal for teachers, so we've been really on the forefront. And you can see some of your teachers took advantage of that as well. We also have a service called Skills Online where we have thousands of course offerings in 12 different industry sectors. We also offer soft skills, these workplace readiness modules, as well as a GED online program available for really anybody in the public. Moving on to our student services, we just did teachers, now we're doing students. Page 4, online courses. This is a big part of our relationship with you. We have developed, you can see the list, a lot of online courses. We're the manufacturer. We work with content experts. We don't know the content, but we hire content experts. We develop the course, and then we give them to you, and you use them however you want in any setting, in any model that works for your division. Flipped, blended, all home, all in the classroom. They're meant to be teacher-led. We've developed, you can see the list, algebra, trig, astronomy, biology, chemistry, digital citizenship, earth science, economics and personal finance, English 9, 10, 11, and 12, French, geometry, health and PE 9 and 10, math analysis, oceanography, an online teaching methodology course, physics, psychology, Virginia U.S. history, Virginia U.S. government, world geography, and both of the world history courses. We also developed a middle school career investigations course that I know you have downloaded into your D2L service. And you can see last year all the courses that we updated last year for either technology or SOL changes. So we did a lot of changes to the, well, you can see about a dozen or so courses last year alone. In the next page, on page 5, we also do now video courses. The other courses were HTML, interactive experiences. Now we have actually take master teachers, put them in front of a camera. It's kind of old school for us, but and we teach literally every single class that you go through in the school year. We have those courses now, video courses for algebra, geometry, and earth science. We believe the next one will be environmental science. We're hoping to find funding for that fairly soon. So we're looking forward to that. You should also know that we operate the state's Virtual Virginia program. This is the Advanced Placement and World Language program. We have operated the service since day one, when it started about 12 or 13 years ago. And you can see 87 of your students took a course through Virtual Virginia. Next page, 6. We love to celebrate smart kids, like Sophia is. Oh, she's not here anymore. Well, you can see item 2. She talked about the PBS Kids Writers Contest. Sophia will be entering into that contest. We do that every year. Children, kindergarten through 5, they write and illustrate a story. They submit those for judging. The winners, we have a big celebration. And actually, we take some of the winners, and we are working now with Regent's animation department. There's the students who are learning how to be animators and taking those stories and bringing those stories to life. So that's a very exciting new level for us working with the kids. You can see last year you actually had a winner in the first place category, Holly Derby from Carver Elementary. The Spelling Bee, we just produced this past Saturday the 13th annual Virginia Media Spelling Bee. This report is for last year, so what you're seeing is last year's middle schools that participated. It is a middle school program. Your champions come to the regional bee at the station, and the winner goes on to the national bee. We did the bee this past Saturday for the first time pre-recorded because there's a cheating scandal going on. I won't get into those details, but it will air on WHRO in 2 weeks. So I can't tell you who won, but in 2 weeks on that Saturday, in 2 weeks you'll see be able to see the bee on WHRO. And you had in this year's bee, Achievable Dream, Crittenden, Dozier, Gildersleeve, Hines, and Passage Middle Schools are all there and all represented at the bee. So root for your students. The Great Computer Challenge, some of you may know this because it's been around for 30 some odd years now. You had 12 teams in this past year's Great Computer Challenge, and on the next page you can see all those participants and winners. Newport News did awesome as they always do, so congratulations on that. Item 6, we do a lot of videos, but the one thing I want to mention is we do spots called Education Now spots where we take some of the best things going on in the division and highlight them for our entire broadcast area. We did the aviation program recently, so Dr. Parker, my folks will be coming out to you to get you on our air very quickly. So you expect a phone call soon and think about what you want to highlight here in the division because we'll make you a star on TV pretty soon. So we want to do that for you. I won't go through a lot on page 8 except please know that we do a lot in the environmental education space. We do hope to be able to expand this effort. We're looking for funding right now. We do hope to create an environmental science online course that we would be giving to all the schools, of course, for free. Funding pending. We're looking for that. We're actively seeking that funding right now. So hopefully we'll have some good news coming up soon on that area. Page 9, early childhood education is really important to all of us. And you can see we do a lot in this space. We have STEM vans, literacy vans. We'll soon have an environmental education van that's actually in production. I think the van may be being delivered this week, and they're going to wrap it with the kids' characters. We have reading camps and coding camps, reading buddy programs, library corners, reader schools, anytime, lots of stuff. You can see the list there. And on page 11, you can see the activities that the division participated in last year. Lots of kids were impacted by our work. And I'll remind you that the price doesn't go up. You pay $2 per student to WHRO, and you can use the services as much as you want. So the more you use them, the more cost effective it is for you. As board members, you care about the money. Page 12 summarizes that for you. You can see you invest $2 per student into WHRO. Last school year, you received an additional value in savings of over $1.8 million. That's an ROI of $28 for every dollar invested. I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have.
Okay. Mr. Brown.
Yes. So you mentioned highlighting some of the work we're doing at our Aviation Academy. What are some of the other opportunities to either advertise or to publicize some of our programs with WHRO? Does it cost us the same, or is it different costs?
We want to probably talk offline about the details of what you're looking for, but again, we do the Education Now spots. That's just because of the ownership we do them for every school division. There are opportunities. The entire region gets together at the station 5 times a year, so there are opportunities there. If you're talking specifically on my air, we could talk about ways to talk more about what's going on, and of course, Dr. Parker knows how to reach me if you want to be on hearsay or things like that. Those are opportunities there for you as well. So we regularly have superintendents on our shows.
Anyone else? There be none. Thank you for the report.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And we will move the agenda to our next item, 6.02, the 2020-21 draft school calendar. Ms. Tracy Brooks.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Vice Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Parker. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share the highlights from our division-wide calendar being proposed for next school year. But before reviewing the calendar itself, I wanted to speak very briefly about the team that developed the draft calendar, the process that they use, and then the factors that we considered while planning the draft calendar that is before you this evening. The draft calendar is an outgrowth of the work of the calendar committee that consisted of teachers, administrators, parents, and representatives from our instructional areas and our support services, all of whom provided valuable input during the calendar development process. Now, our calendar planning process began with the work of the 6 school divisions on the peninsula that formed the Regional Calendar Committee. And for over 10 years, the Regional Calendar Committee has worked to determine uniform days for our winter and spring breaks, our academic semester endpoints, as well as our staff days for professional development. And by having similar calendars, it's benefited our regional programs such as those at New Horizons, as well as families of our employees who may work in one city but reside in another. Now, after the regional committee met in October and November, our Newport News Committee used the region's recommendations as a framework for developing the draft calendar in December and January. Then we posted the draft calendar on the school division's webpage this month for feedback, and we'll be sharing the calendar with our PTA Executive Board, the Employee Communications Forum, and with our community advisory groups for their input. We'll continue to solicit feedback through March, when the calendar will come before you for approval at your March meeting. So what's unique about next year? It will be the first time that the state has allowed school divisions to open before Labor Day, and as you may recall, it's up to 14 days. And as you are aware, in the past, school divisions were required to open after Labor Day unless they received a waiver from the state. And for school divisions starting after Labor Day, next school year will have the latest possible start, which will be Tuesday, September 8th. So this will shift the entire calendar later by about 1 week. Now, there are several factors that we considered in planning the calendar. First, we determined the start date, and as I mentioned earlier, it can be before or after Labor Day. So last fall, school divisions on the peninsula worked together to survey our families, our employees, and our community members about starting before Labor Day. And based on that input, the Regional Calendar Committee recommended that peninsula school divisions begin the 2020-2021 school year after Labor Day. Now, next we considered our instructional program for students, which really drives the development of the calendar. So with that as our guide, we determined our marking periods, our teacher work days, our family conference times, our staff development days, and then, of course, our winter and spring breaks and our holiday observances. Then, based on the calendar of the state requirement of a minimum of 180 instructional days for students, that was the basis for our calendar. Now, state law also allows school divisions to base their calendars on 990 instructional hours per year, but as a region, we initially began with calendar days, but our 180 days actually exceed the 990 instructional hours. Now, once we have our student days in place, we then add teacher work days and opportunities for professional development for a total of 192 teacher days. And lastly, we work within a 245-day contract or appointment period for our 12-month employees. And now I'd like to share highlights from the calendar for next year. As I mentioned earlier, schools will begin after Labor Day, so next year schools will open on Tuesday, September 8th. Now, the calendar that we're proposing schedules family conference time during each semester, and it also provides a teacher workday each quarter and time for professional development. The calendar designates November 25th, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, as a teacher and student holiday, which our teachers and students have come to appreciate, with offices closing for a half day. And then across the region, again this year, we will be observing a 2-week winter break, beginning on Monday, December 21st, and continuing through Friday, January 1st, with schools and offices reopening on Monday, January 4th of 2020. 2021. Now, the month of January includes the Dr. King holiday and a division-wide professional development day at the end of the first semester, which is consistent with our neighboring school divisions. And while we're in January, I wanted to mention that the calendar includes enough instructional hours to cover a minimum of 5 days that we can use to make up time lost due to inclement weather or dangerous road conditions. And we've been very fortunate this year. Our weather has been quite cooperative. Now, in February of 2021, schools and offices will be closed in observance of President's Day. And then throughout the peninsula, spring break will be the first Monday through Friday of April. So next year, spring break will be April 5th through the 9th. We're also including our graduation ceremony dates for our seniors, which will be Saturday and Sunday, June 12th and 13th. And in closing out the school year, the calendar designates Friday, June 18th as the last student day and Monday, June 21st as the last teacher work day. And now I'd like to just share a visual of the calendar itself, and it also includes a chart of the instructional days per marking period, while the yellow and black blocks on the calendar denote days when school is not in session. So in terms of our next steps, we will continue to solicit input from the community on the proposed calendar through a link to the calendar on our webpage, with the opportunity for viewers to ask questions or to post suggestions. And based on that input, we will revise the calendar if needed. Then the final draft calendar will come before the school board for action at your March 24th monthly meeting. And once approved, we will publicize the calendar through our school newsletters and our electronic communications, such as news breaks, news lines, and board briefs, and on our school websites and on our school division web page. And we'll continue to collaborate with other school divisions on the peninsula in preparing our calendars for future school years. So this concludes my report this evening. I will be happy to respond to your questions or to note your suggestions. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Just one question that's regard to the 9-week periods. Like as you highlighted there are different days in those periods, and this is just a general question. Curious to know, are grades or performance any better or worse given the number of days that there are in the marking period? Can we track or trace that to any student performance based upon the number of days in the marking period?
We have not done that, but we can look at that. And I'm going to be honest, typically when we've tried to align the school days within the marking periods, we've tried to keep them as even as possible. But given days like Election Day and others, it has a great impact. But that's research that we could definitely be happy to do.
And that's what I'm generally wondering is, does it matter, right?
Right.
Because maybe it doesn't even matter.
Exactly.
The pacing guide for the course will accommodate the difference in days because you're talking about instructional units. So the pacing guide for the first period would be set for 40 days. That's the amount of content that's given, whereas for 49 days for the fourth quarter. So it really does not matter based on the pacing guide and what teachers will follow in terms of what they're teaching during that quarter.
Ms. Searles-Laws.
As far as AP testing, I noticed that this is a full week juxtaposed for this coming school year. How does that affect student preparation for AP exams as well as the time in which they're administered?
That's a good question, and I don't know if Dr. Pohl would like to answer, but that's of course one of the concerns when we start talking about a pre-Labor Day start, the advantage that will offer our students.
Right.
But Dr. Pohl?
Yeah, so it won't affect because the College Board sets those dates. So the AP testing will still happen the first week of May. So we lose a week of instruction towards AP. So we will designate and find ways to do additional tutoring or some Saturday sessions to make sure that we can accommodate our students and give them all the help they need.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Brooks, for that report.
Great, thank you.
We'll move on to item number 6.03, our mid-year academic update. Mr. Ellis.
Good evening, Chairman Hunter, Vice Chairman Searles-Laws, members of the board, and Dr. Parker. My name is Joseph Ellis, Academic Data Analytics Supervisor, and tonight I'm happy to present a mid-year academic update providing you with information on how we have approached assessment and student performance analysis during the first half of the 2019-2020 school year. Before we look at any data and talk about growth and progress, I want to quickly draw a distinction between the two types of assessments we give in Newport News. Diagnostic assessments are snapshots in time that help identify student strengths and weaknesses and determine whether students are responding positively to instruction and remediation. When we analyze data from diagnostic assessments, we react by adjusting instruction and remediation plans. Predictive assessments, on the other hand, are specifically designed to give a complete picture of students' current level of performance and a prediction of future success. Analyzing predictions allows us to proactively anticipate student needs and design instruction around those needs. Rather than putting all our eggs in one basket, we stand to gain the most by using a combination of data from both assessment types. In Newport News, we utilize a variety of different diagnostic assessments. In the classroom, teachers administer formative assessments such as quick checks, quizzes, and performance assessments. These are closer to everyday instruction and enable teachers to provide students with immediate feedback and alter instruction in the moment. At the division level, our curriculum department provides teachers with suggested sets of common assessments and unit tests throughout each marking period and mandatory quarterly benchmarks that align to the VDOE curriculum framework. Our predictive assessments currently consist of the reading and math inventories. As we continue the presentation, I will provide additional details to clarify why we are using these assessments and how the results are reported. Finally, and new for this year, we will administer cumulative third quarter benchmarks designed to provide us with a more accurate assessment of student performance heading into SOL testing. So tonight, we begin our look into how we are reporting and analyzing academic data with a focus at the elementary level. The most detailed assessment information we provide to schools is a comprehensive view of their students' performance. Each teacher has a report that details every student's performance on each individual standard since the beginning of the school year. This is a lot of information to take in all at once, so let's take a look more closely at a single standard. In this example, we see 3 students in Teacher A's 4th period class with their performance on Standard 3.1a, which is assessing students' ability to read, write, and identify the place and value of each digit in a 6-digit whole number with and without models. As you look across the rows, you can see that student A answered all 5 questions correctly, while student B answered 4 correctly and student C answered 3 correctly. This gives teachers the ability to pinpoint each student's strengths and weaknesses and aids in developing small group instruction for remediation and enrichment. In addition to providing detailed information for each student by standard, we also provide schools with a combined assessment report. While we realize that the SOL test is a single snapshot in time, that snapshot assesses all the skills outlined in the curriculum framework. To align our assessment reporting to a similar measure of student performance, we calculate an overall score for each student and content. Here we have Jaden and Michaela, both 4th grade students in Newport News. Jaden has taken 5 division-level math assessments thus far, while Michaela has taken 4. Throughout each marking period, we can look at how they are performing on those individual assessments, but to give us an idea of where they are with all the content, we combine their scores. Jaden is performing at 82%, while Michaela is at 53%. To help schools and central office staff differentiate resources and support, we classify these students into performance bands. Students such as Jaden, who perform at or above 60%, fall into the green category. Our historical SOL data for 4th grade math suggests that students in this category all pass the SOL test. Students like Michaela, that perform between 43 and 60%, are more likely to pass the SOL test than fail, but could still use some additional support to ensure they are successful. Students below 43% are at the greatest risk of failure and will benefit from greater levels of academic support. Just as a quick aside, if you were wondering why I chose Jaden and Michaela, Never one to let a chance to use data slip through my fingers. Jaden is the most popular boy's name in 3rd through 5th grade. There's 63 Jadens. And Michaela is the most popular girl's name, and I believe there are 21 Michaelas in 3rd through 5th grade. Fun fact. So extending our example out to all students in 4th grade math at our accredited elementary schools, we provide a summary report that shows the distribution of their students in the performance bands. Comparing this distribution to the VDOE's 70% accreditation mark for math, principals can get a feeling for their current standing midway through the school year. As you see here, we have 8 schools currently exceeding the 70% mark. And while we may be alarmed that the other 7 schools are below that 70%, each of them hits that mark with their students in the yellow category. They have work to do in moving that green bar to the right, but knowing who those yellow students are and having their performance on each standard gives them the information needed to get the ball rolling. Jenkins Elementary is right on the cusp of hitting the 70% mark, so let's take a look at some additional details they can use to make the mark. First, school leaders can see the same student distribution, but by teacher. With this information, they can collaborate with curriculum specialists and coaches to target additional resources and support to classrooms exhibiting the greatest need. They can see the performance distribution for students with disabilities to evaluate whether the supports and accommodations provided to those students are leveling the playing field. Additionally, they can see how each ethnic subgroup is performing. And finally, school leaders can see the performance distribution for English language learners. If we shift our focus now to the predictive assessments, let's quickly highlight why we use them. So both the reading and the math inventory assessments are nationally normed and research-based. The reading inventory assessment combines a student's reading ability and the complexity of the texts they've read into what is known as a Lexile score. The data collected from the initial test administration in the fall allows us to assign each student a growth goal for the school year, and the spring Lexile score provides an accurate prediction of SOL performance. The math inventory assessment combines a student's current math abilities and the skills they are ready to learn into a quantile score. This is our first year with the math inventory, so we don't yet have the necessary information to create the same type of predictive model as with the reading inventory. However, we can still use this first year's data to determine student growth. Hey, before we actually dive into some of the reading inventory growth, let's take a look at how we classify our students. So the table you see here shows how last year's students performed on the SOL tests when grouped by their spring reading inventory scores. So, for example, 89% of our 3rd grade students whose Lexile score was 550 or above passed the reading SOL. Similarly, 48% of our 4th grade students whose Lexile score was between 600 and 700 passed the reading SOL. Our analysis also included a look into whether students counted towards the combined rate, which is the VDOE's allowance for students making adequate progress, even though they did not pass the SOL test outright. So if you look in 5th grade, 42% of our students in the beginner category contributed to the combined rate, as opposed to only 20% contributing to the pass rate. This insight alone points to the importance of focusing on student growth as we move into the second half of the school year. So at the elementary level, schools administer the reading inventory during 4 division-wide testing windows for students in grades 3 through 5. Here we see a comparison of the fall and mid-year reading inventory assessments for our 9 elementary schools designated as accredited with conditions. The chart shows the percentage of students that fall in each of the categories from the previous slide. To the right of the charts, we've included the percentage of students in the intermediate and advanced categories to better show the movement of students from the lower categories into the upper categories. As you can see, almost every school has seen growth out of the beginner category and into the intermediate and advanced categories. Additionally, digging deeper into the reading inventory data sheds light on some positive news for some of our student subgroups. Here we see 4 examples of progress for all students in the subgroup, as well as for students that did not pass last year's reading SOL and are eligible to count towards the combined rate when showing adequate progress. To clarify with 2 examples, there are 32 students with disabilities at Newsom Park in grades 3 through 5 that took both the fall and mid-year reading inventory assessment. Of those 32 students, 29 showed growth. At Hightonwood, There are 54 black students in grades 4 and 5 that took both the fall and mid-year reading inventory assessment and are eligible for growth under the VDOE's current accreditation system. Of those 54 students, 44 showed growth. This is not an exhaustive list, and we continue to find celebratory points as we further disaggregate the data. To complement the reading inventory on the mathematics side of the curriculum, we began administering the math inventory assessment in the fall. Students have also completed a mid-year assessment and will take the math inventory once more in the spring. As I mentioned earlier, we do not have the data necessary to create our own categories as we did with the reading inventory. Therefore, we've grouped students into categories supplied by the assessment publisher. Just as we saw with the reading inventory growth, we see the shift out of the below basic category into the higher levels of grade level proficiency. And again, if we look deeper into the math inventory growth, we also see positive news for some of our student subgroups. Here we see 3 examples of progress, again for all students in the subgroup, as well as for students eligible for growth this spring. As with the reading inventory, this is not an exhaustive list, and we are seeing some exciting improvements happen all over Newport News. To conclude our look at elementary schools through the mid-year, we have the rates of chronic absenteeism at each school. The table compares the current year as of yesterday afternoon to last year's published rate, showing a majority of our elementary schools are currently below last year's rate. Principals can monitor chronic absenteeism daily using a custom report created by our Student Information System team, giving them real-time information that mirrors the VDOE's calculations. At this time, I'm happy to have my colleagues from Elementary School Leadership and Curriculum and Development share some of the ways in which they utilize the data in working with principals and teachers.
All right, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak for a moment about the efforts of the Departments of School Leadership and the Departments of Teaching and Learning. My name is Stenette Bird. I am your Executive Director of Elementary School Leadership, and next to me is Lori Wall, who is Director of Curriculum and Instruction. After receiving numerous diagnostics and predictive data like the one shown previously tonight, we work quickly to understand and then offer personalized supports to school. The SST, or School Support Team, is one of the ways in which our 2 departments work closely. This is a monthly cycle of monitoring growth and development, and is a collaborative effort between the school administration, teachers, departments of teaching and learning, student advancement, extended learning, and school leadership. After discussing various data points, providing essential action steps, and even visiting classrooms, we seek input from the school's leadership team as to how we can support students and teachers. One of the final questions that we ask at the end of our meetings is, how can we assist you? We keep a tracking document, that's the last one shown there, that is reviewed each week with the goal of responding to each and every request. Our elementary tracking document currently lists over 100 requests from our schools, and many of which have been met, but all of which have been responded to. The image that you see here in the top right shows how we monitor school improvement plans throughout the year. So every fall, each school finalizes their school improvement plan. Although goals and action steps are identified, submitted, and approved, we consider this a working document that is revisited and modified throughout the year as we respond to the needs of the school. One of the ways in which we monitor the plan is through a quarterly monitoring tool that you see there. Using this document, the school leadership team provides a status update on each action step listed in their school improvement plan.
So you heard Dr. Bird speak to the personalized attention that we provide each school based on their goals and their changing data. So I wanted to share with you a few of the ways that the Teaching and Learning Department provide this personalized attention. We know one of the most powerful professional practices we can offer to teachers is to partner with them in a coaching cycle to assist with them achieving their SMART goals that they've established. These coaching cycles allow teachers to work alongside both the school and central office staff to learn and refine strategies to strengthen the planning and delivery of the written assessed curriculum. Another way in which we support the goals of the school improvement plan and action steps from school support team meetings is through professional development. Our department partners with schools to customize professional learning for individual grade levels, groups of grade levels, and whole school learning. We also offer a host of after-school professional learning offerings that teachers can choose to attend individually or with teams. And just last week, the entire first grade team from Achievable Dream came to one of our math sessions so that they could learn, they could reflect, and they could plan next steps as a grade level. And then finally, there are times when the schools request additional curriculum resources based on the needs that they have identified, and our team responds accordingly. So these are just a few of the ways in which our departments assist schools in moving the needle forward on student and teacher growth. And we adjust and we readjust these supports based on new data points throughout the course of the school year. And so our partners in secondary, Dr. Barnett and Dr. Jones, in just a few minutes will share some additional structures and supports, but we'll turn it back over to Joe.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Dr. Burt. Now that we've seen some data and heard about how our elementary schools are using it to improve instruction, let's take a look at our secondary schools. Secondary schools also receive their students' performance on each standard, but because of how we schedule students in middle and high school, the ability to group students by class period is an important aspect of their data analysis. In this example, we see that teacher A can still drill down to his individual students in period 2, but he can also see period 1. This allows secondary teachers to plan for individual class periods, differentiating instruction based on the unique needs of each group of students. Our middle and high schools receive the same combined assessment reporting as our elementary schools, including the ability to drill down to individual teachers and subgroups like we saw earlier. In this example at the middle school level, we see all English reading assessments, meaning we've combined 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. This gives schools the same look that the state provides when determining accreditation. If we compare that to the 75% mark set by the state for reading, we see one middle school is ahead of the mark, with 5 others hitting that in the mark in the yellow category. Just as with our elementary schools, having this information available to teachers, principals, and curriculum teams allows for close-knit collaboration in providing resources and support where they are needed the most. An additional piece of our reporting shows student performance on each assessment over time. Here we see 5 students in their performance on each of the 6 unit tests and 2 quarterly benchmarks given during the first semester. Looking at student E, we can see they struggled with units 2 and 3. Teachers can use this information to further pinpoint the content and skills that cause students to struggle at certain points throughout the school year. At the middle school level, we administer the reading inventory during 3 division-wide testing windows for students in grades 6 through 8. Because this is our first year administering the assessment at the middle school level, we don't yet have the data necessary to create our own categories as we have with the elementary school reading inventory assessment. These 2 charts show students grouped using the categories supplied by the assessment publisher. While we don't see the amount of growth that we saw at the elementary level, it's important to note that in middle school, Lexile score growth is much slower, and the score ranges for the upper levels of proficiency are much smaller than those in the elementary grades. In addition to showing how all students at a school fall into the reading inventory performance bands, we give middle school teachers the ability to see back to how their 6th grade students performed last year in elementary school. In this example, you can see how this student showed consistent growth over her entire 5th grade year and has continued that growth into 6th grade. Detailed information at the student level allows teachers to build stronger academic relationships with their students and provides a solid foundation for goal setting. To conclude our look at secondary schools through the mid-year, we look at the rates of chronic absenteeism at each school, again as of yesterday afternoon. From the tables, we see the majority of our middle schools and 2 of our high schools are currently below their rate of chronic absenteeism from last year. I'd now like to welcome my colleagues from secondary school leadership and curriculum and development to share some of the strategies in which they utilize the data in working with principals and teachers.
Good evening. I am Dr. Felicia Barnett, Executive Director of Secondary School Leadership, and joining me is Dr. Joanne Jones, our Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Similar to elementary schools, we also have collaborative and strategic supports in our secondary schools. They include structures such as our tiered school support meetings. During these meetings, our middle and high schools instructional leadership teams meet with division leaders on a tiered schedule to analyze academic progress on division benchmark assessments, progress monitor action steps on their school improvement plan, and discuss potential resources needed to support their work. Additionally, our secondary principals are active participants in their own professional learning communities, designed by middle to high school feeder patterns. These PLCs meet approximately every 60 days to share best practices regarding academic interventions and enrichments for students, feedback on school improvement SMART goals and action steps, as well as conduct learning walks in our secondary schools to calibrate instructional feedback. Lastly, in collaboration with our teaching and learning department, we continue to provide professional development to our instructional staff as they take a deeper dive into the essential tenets of professional learning communities. Participants receive professional development in enhancing PLC foundational skills, empowering PLC facilitators, growing PLC teams, and building a continuous growth mindset. Along with our work with division and school leaders, as well as instructional staff, strategic supports are also provided to our students. And I now turn it over to Dr. Jones to share those with you.
Good evening. The Curriculum and Development team works very hard to provide strategic support at our middle and high schools. Based on the 2018-2019 Quality School results, Newport News has conducted 6 academic reviews with members from the Department of Teaching and Learning, Student Advancement, and School Leadership. The findings indicate essential actions to enhance the development of lesson plans, quality of learning experiences, and also providing actionable feedback from observations. A meeting has been held with each principal to discuss the findings and essential actions. Principals have already begun meeting with their school improvement teams to include these essential actions in their school improvement plans. In Newport News Public Schools, various levels of differentiated instruction are provided to support student learning. Excuse me. Some of our tiered supports include Achieve 3000 in English, Voyager, No Red Ink, News Ella, and writing conferences. In math, supports include the implementation of IXL, explicit math instruction, and the use of university instructors who work with teachers and coaches to provide small group instruction to our students. Supervisors and specialists work through the implementation of these programs, provide data, and coach teachers in PLC meetings. Additionally, directors, supervisors, and coaches also conduct scheduled learning walks with principals to focus on the alignment of the written, taught, and assessed curriculum. Additionally, students are also supported during interventions during the school day, as well as through after-school programs, including the 21st Century Learning Program and WeLeap. Again, we collectively work together to support our schools during and after school, making strategic decisions.
As you have seen, we are working hard to provide teachers and principals the information they need to better understand the needs of their students and make informed decisions to meet those needs. To date, my team has provided personalized data training, coaching, and guidance to 31 schools, as well as collaborating with our colleagues in school leadership and student advancement. As we continue to work together to strengthen our school support team process and meet with teachers, grade levels, and content teams, our ability to provide the information and reporting they need can only improve. That concludes the mid-year academic update, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions at this time.
Thank you. Any, Dr. Bass?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to think how to ask this. How soon if you identify like a classroom that is struggling on a grade level, how soon will the teacher, you mentioned things like coaching cycles and professional development, how soon after it is identified will the teacher receive services, or what has been if you could give me like an idea of a timeline? And then I just have a second question. If I were a parent,
Yes, ma'am.
if I were a parent whose child was in yellow, let's say yellow, would I know that the teacher is being helped? If is there any information sent to the parent, or it's just done to address the problem?
My department doesn't directly communicate that to parents, but I can have Lori talk to the coaching cycle work.
As far as our coaching cycle, we encourage all of our teachers to partner around their SMART goals, their individual SMART goals, so they can reach out directly to our support staff here at Central Office or at their building to begin a coaching cycle immediately. So if they see a need in their classroom when they identify the data point, they can reach out directly and say, hey, I have some work to do in this area. This is my SMART goal. Could you meet with me so we can kind of establish some work to do? Or they may partner with an internal person in their building, like a reading specialist or a model teacher, a new teacher coach here at Central Office. So that can happen immediately. And then that coaching cycle is based on what the goal is. It may be 3 weeks. It might be it could be a month. It could be until we hit the goal. And so the teacher would establish how long that coaching cycle would be based on the goal.
Can I ask, so is that support provided as well to, let's say, long-term subs or folks stepping in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, same level of support.
Sometimes we do, if there's more than one long-term sub in the building and we need to have, they could be coaching a group of people at a time in terms of providing professional learning and then working alongside them in the classroom. But if they're a long-term sub providing instruction to our students, we absolutely want to provide them the most support that we can. Yes.
Mr. Brown?
All right. We'll loop back to that second question you asked about the parent.
Do you want me to answer the parent question about the were you asking in terms of if the parent knows that they're getting coaching support?
Or their student is not being successful?
They would know that the teacher would be sharing that data ongoing with the parent, and that's the structure in which they want to share. It could be a parent conference. It could be through student-led conferences, but the teacher should be sharing that data with parents every time we have a new cycle of data.
Okay.
Our remediation cycles are set up based on that performance data. So if a parent is interested in their student's schedule and the teachers are communicating that they're getting academic support, they're specifying specific now exactly where their student needs help. And also, in terms of interventions for reading, if they're not where they need to be at that particular Lexile score. So that data is now readily available to communicate to parents on where their students are in that spectrum, whether they're green, yellow, or red, and how much additional support they may need. This conversation is also needed if we feel that student is a prime candidate for some type of summer remediation. The earlier we start having that conversation and parents understand why that additional remediation is needed, you can't catch kids up sometimes with the same amount of time. You catch people up with more time. So in communicating why students need after-school support or summer remediation, that's part of that conversation, and now it's a data-driven conversation as well.
I just want to add that our coaches also provide support according to the need at each school. So they don't give schools equal time. They give schools time based on the need at each school. So the support is also tiered how we deploy our help into schools.
We have a student support process as well. So as we see that we need to bring a student to the student support and have more people around the table, a parent could also be invited to say, hey, we need to look at additional intervention services, and so we have the student support team process in place as well.
I have one more question. So you look at the data from from your testing, but do you look at grades? Do you? Okay, could you just tell me, just maybe 30 seconds, like how you? So
Triangulating the data.
Yes.
So we always say don't look at one data point in
Okay.
isolation. So they would be looking at all of the data points together, and then calibrating, do the grades represent
the school,
the scores, and then if we need to make adjustments, they would talk about what are the adjustments that we need to make if those are not aligned.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
Well, normally I have a lot of questions, and so tonight I'm actually not going to ask any questions because I do believe this presentation answers my questions, and I'm simply going to make a comment that this is a fantastic report.
Thank you, sir.
And this is no offense to anyone else who's going to present tonight or in the future, but in my time on the school board, this is the best report that I've ever received.
Thank you.
I must say the transparency, the predictive nature of the report are all of the things that, as a board member, that I've been making requests for and asking for over the years. This gives me a very good picture of where we are, how much we've grown over the course of the year, and gives me the hope of where we hope to be at the end of the year. So I have no questions. My questions have been answered. I want to thank all of the staff that put this report together and everyone who was a part of presenting this. This is a fantastic report. This is filled with good data and analytics and predictive insight, and I applaud this report. Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting on that one. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chronic absenteeism report.
Yes, sir.
Did you look at any of the indicators instead of the numbers? Like why did Woodside improve, I guess, those days by 7 days, and the rest of the high schools except for Heritage, also Heritage improved. So what happened to the other 3 high schools? Is there any, maybe job market or did you find out why?
I can't specifically speak to that.
Right.
Yeah, Dr. Barnett can probably
Okay,
speak
yeah,
to
sure.
that more than me. So what, from my perspective, we do the data for the schools, and
Right.
that's provided to them,
Right,
so that,
right.
and they can use that. But I'll go ahead and let
Yeah.
Dr. Barnett speak to that.
Yes. As we look at our chronic absenteeism at our various schools, we do find that some of our schools have developed some best practices around keeping kids in school, as well as identifying those who are chronically absent and involving parents and community. And we found that some of our schools have really had a great model in place.
Okay.
And so we pulled together some workshops in which all of our schools have participated in. For High School Heritage hosted one. Woodside has also done so that they are now sharing some of their practices with the other schools to hopes to provide some more successful practices. We're finding a variety of reasons on why our students may be absent, as we're making sure that we're trying to reduce those numbers of out-of-school suspensions and things like that. But as you can imagine, as our students get older, there are a variety of reasons that they are absent. But we're finding that some of those best practices that are proven success in those schools, we're sharing those. Schools are collaborating together to determine how can they now implement some of those practices in their buildings as well.
Okay.
Okay. And Ms. Charles Laws and then Mr. Gore.
My question kind of speaks to our teachers embracing the access to data. Like what type of ongoing professional development are teachers receiving?
Mm-hmm.
And are they given, honestly, when you have the data, it takes time to evaluate it.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that I have to say before I sit down is I have 2 wonderful data specialists back there in the back, Lisa Kuhn and Danielle Ross. Without the 2 of them, us going out to 31 schools and providing the support that we do, it wouldn't be possible. So they are busy on the road almost every day of the week, going to meetings with principals, assistant principals, content teams, teachers, talking about any type of data you can think of, whether it's discipline, attendance, academic. So they're the ones that are out there really selling the reports to the teachers and working with them on a daily basis. So we do get out there into the buildings. We do dig into the data, into the reports, and work with them, help them establish goals, and help them use it the way that they need to move kids.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great report.
How recently has the workshops for chronic absenteeism been administered, and have you seen any difference in the way they've been handled?
I'll turn that over to Dr. Barnett.
Great follow-up.
Through structures such as our school support team meetings, that's pretty much one of the first ways that we realized some of the new practices that our buildings are using. And so, for example, there were some creative ways that one school used. We're able to invite other schools to collaborate with them and learn about those. And they've determined that maybe during the school day might have been a best practice where they were able to get parents in. Other times it were evening programs. So it really depending on targeting the reason behind the absenteeism, and then what's the best way to reach out to the parent community and the student community. We've also found that for many of our high schools, they've determined to get input from their high school students in terms of what are the incentives that they want. We found that some of our adults in our building may believe that our students want certain incentives, but when they've been able to pull into their student leadership teams, they've discovered that high school students have their own idea of what would make them want to come to school and how they would like to be celebrated when they've come to school. So as we've been able to gather input from not only the community and staff, but from our students as well, we've been able to, I think, reach success in some of those schools that you see.
Okay. Thank you.
And Dr. Barnett covered what I was going to say, but I do want to add that we also provide opportunities for principals to talk to other principals and kind of brainstorm different things that have been successful. But I do want to point out that on that report that it is a student is triggered at this point in the year based on how many days they've been in school. So for example, if they've been in school 90 days and they've missed 9 days, let's say flu season, then they're going to trigger on that report. But as the school year goes on, they can come off the report. Okay. So those aren't going to be our numbers at the end of the year. So there's still opportunities for us to address those issues.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? There being none, very good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next, in our next report, we're going to get some information about the PPA. Ms. Mary Lou Rousseau will come up and enlighten us.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter, members of the board, Dr. Parker, good evening. I have been asked to share with you a little information about the PPEA, and so I'm going to do that. I'm emphasis on little. That's a pretty complicated, complex set of rules, so we're not going to go over all those tonight. But what I would like to do is talk a little bit about how you might be able to use this, how we might be able to use this, and what you would have to do before we could do that. So the PPEA, which is the Public-Private Education Facilities and Infrastructure Act of 2002, that was the legislation that was passed by the General Assembly in 2002 to enable this type of process. And they also then, the state drafted model guidelines. So every public entity that wants to use the PPEA has to adopt their own guidelines, and that would be something that you would have to do before we could use this tool. So the state also identified some qualifying projects that this tool could be used to procure, and we're interested mostly in the first line, K-12 schools and support facilities. This was, in fact, the process that the city used to provide us the new Scott facility. So it was done through a PPEA, as I think many of you already know. So what was it that the state was trying to accomplish with providing a PPEA process? Essentially, they were looking at two things. One, to bring private funding to the public projects, and number two, really to provide faster delivery for time-sensitive projects. Now, I thought this quote that I found in a little brief that was done of the PPEA was interesting. I want to call it to your attention. However, for the most part, P3, that's public-private partnership law, are not designed to alter public infrastructure financing models. Rather, they are essentially procurement statutes that facilitate design-build types of projects. So in many of the projects I've looked at, they have not been financed with private funding, albeit that was one of the tenets really that the General Assembly had in promoting this legislation. They have really been funded, just as the Scott project was, just like any other capital project would be funded with public funds. So it has not really brought a lot of private money into at least the school arena. And that may have happened in some of the other types of projects. I've not really researched many of those. But anyway, so that's what the state was about with promulgating that legislation. So in Virginia, there are basically 3 ways that you can procure infrastructure project: design, bid, build, design, build, and now the PPEA. So I thought maybe the best way to talk about these types of projects, rather than turning it over to Mr. Harris for him to do it, is to draw a little picture for you of these 2 types of processes. So the top one is the design, bid, build, and that is how we've done our infrastructure projects here for some time. And essentially the way it works is this. We select an architect to help us with our conceptual design process. They help us develop drawings, preliminary drawings, and detailed drawings, and then we go to bid. And so I've got bid, rebid. We haven't had to do a rebid since I've been here, but of course that could happen. If when you do the bid, the price that you get is more than you have, then you may have to rebid. So that's what that is about. After the bidding, you select a contractor. In Virginia, for if you do an IFB, you select the lowest responsible and responsive bidder to do your project, and then they get the necessary permits and construction begins. So it's kind of a linear process as it's shown there. You know the cost, where that little caret says cost established after the bid is done. Contrast that with design build. Now the reason I think it's important to go over this design build, essentially a PPA is a design build process. So this process looks more like the PPEA. It's on the bottom. There, and well, let me just mention one other thing about the top one. So we end up having 2 contracts, one with an architect, one with a builder. Okay? Right. Different with the design build project, a delivery process, you have 1 contract with a design builder, maybe called a developer. But anyway, you do that conceptual planning with that design builder. They do preliminary drawings. At that point, somewhere, and this is like a textbook example, right? So it's never going to happen exactly like this. But anyway, after the preliminary drawings are done, typically you can be able to lock in what they call in that process a guaranteed maximum price. So that's when you would know what the cost of your project was going to be a little earlier in the game than you might in a design bid build. Detailed drawings are done, but before they're finished, you can begin the permitting process and construction can begin before the detailed drawings are finished. So that's where the time game comes in. You don't bid, you don't do a contractor selection. So you can see that it indicates there that you would have a shorter timeline. Now, I'm going to also tell you that is not always true. I would tell you with the Scott project, I think we could have done a design bid build in less time than it took us to get through that process. Right. But that's just Mary Lou's editorializing. Okay. Some of you that weren't here, we started that process in 2013. And we just moved in this summer. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, the public entity, before you could accept any proposals for a PPEA project, you must, solicited or unsolicited, you must, as a body, adopt guidelines. Those guidelines have to be modeled after the state guidelines. And essentially what those guidelines will do is establish the rules that you're going to use to require folks to submit proposals to you, how we will consider those proposals, and how we would act on those. As I've mentioned, the proposals can be solicited or unsolicited. You might recall that for the Scott project, there was an unsolicited proposal, and then there was, as is required, competition of additional advertising for additional competing proposals, and there were 2 in that particular case. The conceptual proposals that are received are reviewed. 1 is selected. They call that a down select. And then a detailed proposal is submitted by whoever submitted that winning proposal. A detailed proposal is reviewed, and then a comprehensive or interim agreement is negotiated. And if you go with an interim agreement, then obviously you have to later do a comprehensive agreement. So at that point, if a school board is the public entity that is doing the project, since we are fiscally dependent, the city council would have to review and approve our agreement before you could accept it. You have to then have a public hearing, and then an agreement can be signed. So that's a really thumbnail sketch of what the process looks like, and the guidelines are pages and pages as opposed to 1 slide. So there's a little more detail behind it, but we'll get to that perhaps in another meeting. So in terms of pros and cons, I thought I would help with that. In terms of pros, there are some folks who will tell you that design build or PPEA would give you a shorter time frame and lower cost. I've just given you one example of where that may not have been the case, certainly for the time frame. What it does allow you to do is, for example, if we were to solicit proposals for a particular project, it would give us access to multiple designs, as opposed to contracting with one designer and telling them what we want and them developing that design. So if you were to solicit proposals for some project, you would get several different designs done at their expense, not ours, and then we could select what we thought was best and then negotiate for that. The process does allow for private sector financing. Again, not the case in Scott and not the case in many of the ones that I've looked at in the school venue. And like I mentioned, the project cost can be covered by proposers prior to construction, and you do have just one single point of contact, one contract. I thought for the cons, we'd use considerations instead, and this slide was put together by Fiscal Analytics. You know, sometimes I bring you their information as part of the budget, but they're in many other areas as well. And this is a slide that was part of a presentation that they gave to the VML steering committee about public-private partnerships. So I thought it was interesting to share that with you as opposed to giving you my cons. So the public-private partnerships still require the expenditure of public funds. At the end of the day, the project will be funded by the public, whether it is immediately or during the course of the project. You need public funding. So you still got to figure out the funding conundrum, right? So there still has to be public money somewhere. For a large public entity, you see the second bullet there, large public entity with excellent access to credit markets, it may be more cost effective to rely on internal financial resources. So what does that mean? The cost of capital for the city, for example, is tax-exempt bonds. So their cost of capital is going to be less than most private entities, and so therefore often cheaper in terms of the cost of capital at least. So that's a consideration. It is really one of the reasons why we've not brought to you before PPEA guidelines. I did make a presentation of the board in 2015. I went back and looked at that, July of 2015, and at that point the consensus of the board was not to move forward. But we can certainly do something different today. And then the use of developers for most capital projects adds another layer of cost without much benefit. So I'm sure that's. If I had told you that, maybe you wouldn't believe it, but this is from Fiscal Analytics, so we'll just leave it at that. A private partner should have experience working on a PPEA project. They're fairly complex, and we learned that as we went through the Scott project with the city. And so it would be helpful if whoever we were going to partner with knew something about it. On the third bullet, it helps if we know something about it as well. And you need the right staff. So if you don't have that staff, caution here is to make sure that you have it, get some assistance if you don't, or hire a consultant. You may not know, but the city did hire a consultant to help them with the analysis of the PPEA for the Scott project. So something that we would need to consider. I would tell you that I think we're not staffed deeply enough to do this on top of everything else that happens every day. We would need to get some assistance, I think. So next steps. If you want to move forward with the PPEA proposal, you will need to adopt a policy and draft guidelines. So we would be able to get those to you at your March meeting if you so choose, and then you would be able to approve those at your April meeting, and that would allow us at that point to move forward. So, Dr. Parker, those are my comments, and I'd be glad to address any questions if you have them.
Questions?
Well,
How'd I do, Mr. Harris?
Mr.
Right.
Harris.
Well, in the words of Douglas, it may be one of the best reports I've since I've been in. That is no disrespect to the ones that have brief or will brief in the future. So life depends on what you like, right? So, or what you know about.
It's like good night.
Yeah, just that simple.
Well, I'm going to sit down while I'm ahead then.
Right. But no, it's a great briefing. I'm glad you did it because I want the board to really understand that, we have mechanisms if we have the will to want to proceed. And also enlightens them on the conversations when they have with other entities. When someone said, well, we just can't do that. You can't take it as a grain of salt because we have ways to get things done. Just depends on how we want to do it, or do we have the will to go for it. And that's why I've always mentioned that we need to have courses of actions in place be prepared to execute if we have to. So that's the last time I would say that again. But thank you for your brief. So.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to adjourn these meetings, boy, early. Mr. Brown.
Yeah. So my questions are around the private funding. So just to clarify, PPEA is the only mechanism to get private capital funding for a capital project. Is that
Well,
true?
Yes. Probably.
Okay. And what this is great to hear. So what I'm hearing from this is that I principally am interested in this type of a plan for Denby Aviation Academy as a plan going forward to mitigate the challenge that we face there. What I'm hearing here is that initially I was concerned that because of the site, that it's at the airport site, that's the only reason why we could do a PPEA. And so it sounds like that is not the case, that a PPEA is applicable for any public building. It doesn't matter that it's at the airport site.
Absolutely, that's true.
Okay.
But it is not a guarantee that you'll get private financing. I just want to make that clear.
So, and then you also mentioned about the approval of the agreement, and then talk a little bit more about the outlay in the out years, because generally capital is put forward, and then debt service, it comes out of our operating budget or out of the city's operating budget to pay the out years. In this case, the private entity would put up the capital, and then we would pay out of our operating budget it
would depend.
A lease agreement.
To quote Mr. Wallen, it would depend. But essentially, if let's take the Scott project as an example. So in that case, that was in the city's capital budget, but what the money that was at the front of that, instead of them having to do the design and pay for the design up front, the contractor paid for that as part of the process. Right. Now, then the capital starts, they actually funded the project, and then they'll pay for it over 20 years. I think they funded it over 20 years as they do most of their debt.
Okay. But leasing back so the private company putting up the building and us leasing it back from them is one option that we could pursue under a PPEA.
If we find a private partner who's willing to do that, yes.
Partner. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then lastly is just around, so this act has been around. I take it that it's rare for school divisions to use it, but has it been used before in Virginia? So it has been
used in Virginia. It was used actually in Norfolk for 5 schools there, but the city did that project, not the school division.
Okay. Okay. So, but there is precedence for using a PPEA to build a school.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There are many actually that have been done in the state.
And what are the pros and cons of us waiting on City Council to partner with us in a PPEA versus doing it ourselves? That's my other question.
Okay, that's
a political person.
Okay, you just mechanistically where the money's going to come out of, and
I think it's less about the money and more about the level of I'm going to say control of the process.
Comfort,
right?
Same thing.
So, under a PPEA, we, the school division, have an ability to enter into this, set our own timeline, hopefully, and get a building in a timely fashion.
Yes, but you as a school board do have to have the governing body's approval of that contract before you can enter into it. Yes, because ultimately they're going to fund it, unless we have a private entity who would be willing to fund it.
That's right.
Okay. The last question would be around, let's say that we do a solicitation to get a private entity. There is nothing ventured, nothing gained in terms of if no private entity comes forward, we can always go back to the drawing board in terms of going through a design, bid, build process. Is that
yes, at any part in this process, you can stop.
Right. So there's no harm in trying to go down this path. At least mechanistically, there's no harm in trying to go down this path while we pursue all of our options.
I don't see that there's any harm.
Okay. All right.
Ms. Searles Laws.
So then, say we did decide to head down that path. The solicited proposals, at what point do you need the outside governance to help you with the process? Is it on the very front end of starting the PPEA, or is there a point at which the board and the district would need that additional expertise?
I think it would be near the front of the process, yeah. And that is really when the city brought their assistance in as well.
Okay.
To actually do the review of the proposals, which is kind of early in the process.
And how much does that cost?
I don't have a clue at this
It's-
point.
yeah,
Really haven't looked at that.
What part you talking about? The design?
Bringing someone on to
Well,
help us manage
normally the design
the
is
governance.
46% of what the total budget is already set for. But the bottom line is, if you don't have money appropriated for the project, even though we may or could go down that line, and that was a great question, Douglas, because what it does is puts us in control of our own timeline. So what if we did get some funding? Now, the only question would be, would the city support us? That's the only question. All right? And from this position, I think that's a position that we should be in.
So my question was actually more towards the person who would help us,
Yes,
the
consultant.
entity that would help us consult through the process,
And
not
I
the
don't know the
building.
answer to that. We'd
Okay.
have to look into that.
Okay. Because that would have to be in our budget.
And I've not looked into that. But
And all in all, we still have to get approval from the city council at the end.
absolutely. Yeah, we do.
One city.
Yes, sir. Golden rule.
I'd rather get a statement early from them later.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Mary Lou, thank you for that presentation. Okay. So we will move the agenda. Items number 6.05, attendance report, 6.06, membership report, 6.07, construction report. They were part of your package. If there's no questions on those, we will move on to item number 6.08, comments by the superintendent. Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mary Lou, if I'm correct, we're going to bring back an update at some point on the aviation magnet program. So we're looking at bringing back an update possibly as early as April or May, once we have that. And when we bring that update back, we'll also possibly have some information regarding city commitment to a future project. Okay, so just to keep in mind, I definitely believe this information is very helpful, but I'm a firm believer you never throw other options off the table. You know, if there are other options to get things funded, you definitely look at all your options, and then you take the most reasonable pathway to get the project done. And the city is still an option as long as we continue to engage. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and give some information here. One of the things before I give you my prepared remarks, every assessment that you saw up there sent by the division to schools, before it can go into those reports and break down by student, by teacher, and everything, that man and his team right there have to go through each one of those assessments results and input that information. I mean, it's really a time-intensive, labor-intensive act of love that Joe and his team does, and I'd like to give them a round of applause for the hard work. So thank you so much for that, and you're seeing the benefit of that hard work that they do for our schools. Very appreciated. I want to again acknowledge and thank our dedicated school board members for their work on behalf of public education and our students that we serve. I must say that a productive and collegial school board should never be taken for granted. Thank you for your commitment and support to students, families, and staff of Newport News Public Schools, and your leadership does make a difference. To Ms. Moore Buffalo, thank you again for your hard work behind the scenes. Everything you do to support this board is phenomenal, and we really appreciate the support and keeping us up and running. So thank you so much. February is also Career and Technical Education Month, so I will have to take a moment to thank our CTE teachers this month. Our CTE teachers lead more than 80 courses that prepare our students to earn industry credentials and marketable job skills. In 2019, Newport News Public School students earned over 3,200 certifications, accelerating their access to technical and high-skilled careers. Last week, unfortunately, the CTE department suffered a great loss. Aviation Academy teacher Terry Tucker Sanchez passed away unexpectedly. So to Mrs. Tucker Sanchez and her families, we're thinking about you. We mourn your loss, and definitely want the Denby and Aviation Magnet family to know that they are supported. She served Newport News Public Schools and the CTE program for over 15 years. Earlier this month, we hosted our second Male Empowerment Summit conference, and it's called RISE, at Heritage High School. Over 200 young men joined us on a Saturday morning for the High Energy Conference that featured dynamic presentations, a panel discussion, interactive breakout sessions, and workshops for parents and caregivers. I had the opportunity to address the young men and the male mentors who supported the conference during the opening and closing ceremonies. It was truly a rewarding experience. I want to thank this board also, who covered the morning and afternoon, came out to see the young men, walked around, got a chance to meet some of our male mentors throughout the community, take a few pictures. You see Mr. Harris up there with men, and really enjoyed the day. So thank you so much for your support of RISE. We'll continue to do great work together with that initiative. On February 7th, we held our first Elementary Engineering Design Challenge of the year, Coding Our Freedom, which was presented by the U.S. Navy. Teams of 4th and 5th grade students from all elementary schools had to advance through our 4 increasingly complex challenges, including building an unmanned submarine, solving a secret password using binary code, and directing an unmanned surface vehicle. Congratulations to Saunders Elementary School, who earned first place, Duttrow Elementary for second place, and Rich Neck Elementary for earning third place in the challenge. Congratulations to the teens in driving seatbelt and the Teens in Driving Seatbelt Club at Woodside High School for earning the John T. Hanna Award for their efforts to get students to buckle up. Each year, Drive Safe Hampton Roads gives this honor to individuals and groups who have promoted safe driving practices. The Woodside High School Club participates annually in Drive Safe's Get It Together, Buckle Up campaign. We'd like to also congratulations order for nearly 300 students who presented their research projects at our annual All-City Science, Engineering, and Technology Fair last month. Dozens of students earned medals, cash awards, trophies, and other prizes for their problem-solving, investigation, and inquiry techniques. Winners in each category are invited to present their work at the Tidewater Science and Engineering Fair at Old Dominion University on March 14th. Special thanks to our volunteer judges and our science department staff for another successful year. A complete list of winners is posted on our website. And please mark your calendars for the Budget Input Forum on Monday, March 2nd at 2:30 here in the Administration Building. Parents, students, staff, and members of the community are invited to share their ideas and funding priorities during this forum. Comments may also be submitted online at nnschools.org/budget. We welcome any participation this year in our budget process. And thank you for a great meeting, and that concludes my reports, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. At this time, again, is have an opportunity for our audience to address the school board. And I believe we do have a card here. And I believe we have Mr. Eric McCaskill. As you come forward, Mr. McCaskill, recall that we have a 3-minute time limit. When you begin, the light turns green. The yellow light indicates that you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light in the beep indicates that your time is up. We ask that you bring your comments to a close. Thank you.
I shall do the best of my ability, Mr. Chairman. We have a lot to say. I need a lot of time, but I'll be mindful. First of all, good evening, distinguished, and I might add, virtuous school board members. I honor your diligence and fortitude in the process of my alma mater in terms of the future of the Huntington High School, which was the bastion of greatness many, many years ago. This being African American History Month, I would like to share the history of 2 young men who are still living, who are products of Newport News High School. One whose birthday is today, the legendary Leroy Keys, who finished the Carver High School and matriculated at Purdue University, and the other being yours truly, Eric Rogers McCaskill from Huntington High School, who matriculated at Purdue also. 50 years ago at Purdue University was very hard times. We, as African Americans, took a stand. Athletes took a stand. We were prepared by this village called Newport News. And 50 years later, at the 150-year anniversary of Purdue University, we are in the book. and it says that McCaskill, national high school record holder, football legend Leroy Keys, McCaskill and Keys both came from competing in segregated high schools in Newport News, Virginia. So Newport News is in the book, Carver and Huntington. And we took a stand for student rights. Peaceful demonstration, I might add. Leroy Keys was voted the greatest football player in the history, 100 years of football history at Purdue University. Yours truly went on to be the founder of the Purdue Black Cultural Center, which we just celebrated 50 years this past June. So having said that, we're just sharing that mediocre teachers tell, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, superior teacher demonstrates, but the great teacher inspires. And all those who are inspired by Huntington High School, I'm going to ask you to stand. Let the legacy continue for the Huntington High School. Freestanding, I might add, and ancillary buildings to the great Huntington High School. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Are there any more cards? Are there any more cards? Are there any more cards? There being none, we'll move the agenda to item number 8, matters by the school board. And we'll have Mr. Gore. You're up.
I wanted to start off by stating that I believe that the workshops are definitely a good start to try to mitigate chronic absenteeism, because during my senior year we find it very hard in order to stay in school, seeing as though the end is so close, and sometimes you do need that incentive to come back to school and to immerse yourself in the world of learning. And I believe that being able to have these workshops and to actually improve the educational experience for seniors is actually a very good start in order to have our rates increase for being attentive in school. Also, I believe that this next Wednesday, I believe, we will be discussing the dress code policy at SAGE. I'm looking forward to collaborating with not only Dr. Parker but other SAGE members about the dress code policy, what they believe is actually good about it and what they believe is actually bad. Because not only is the dress code policy supposed to make students comfortable, but it's also supposed to make them be able to be more informed in class. They shouldn't be distracted in any way, and we believe that this remaking the dress code policy or discussing it will be the best way to administer this. As second semester starts, I wanted to state that I am happy to say that there's only a few months left until we graduate. I'm going to try to stay on the right road. I'm trying to influence my other companions to also stay on this road with me. But I thank you for these last few months. It's been amazing, and I hope to move forward with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. Dr. Bess.
Okay. I do have a few comments. I would just like to take a minute to acknowledge some of the professions that have been acknowledged for the month of February. We celebrated National School Counseling Week and also School Security Officers or Security Officers Appreciation Day during the month of February. I also had an opportunity to attend the All-City Science and Engineering and Technology Fair, and it was simply amazing. When I was in school, people looked at people that love science as kind of nerdy, but it's a whole different world out there, and I love those nerds, and they are proud of what they do, very intelligent, and it was just amazing. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. Also had an opportunity to read to students at Noosa Park Elementary at National Read Aloud Day, and Dr. Seuss's birthday is coming up soon, so we're looking forward to that. And school board members, I know you should be expecting some phone calls to come and read at the schools. When students come back from the winter holiday, if you've ever been in a classroom, you know that they are just a little different when they come back after that winter holiday. So it's a very challenging time for teachers, and like Nazir alluded to, we got to make it to that finish line. So one of the things that I do to relieve a little stress for me is I participate in plays. And I had an opportunity to participate in a play, not this past weekend, but weekend before last. And I also had the pleasure of working with a Newport News teacher, I wrote it here, Mr. Trey Rawls. He's the band director at Denby High School, and I had the pleasure of participating in the play with Miss Matoka Donovan, who is a graduate of Woodside High School. And I shared that with you, so I'm encouraging teachers and all of you that work in the school system as we come to this time to take time to do the things that you enjoy. And it was good to see the Newport News employee and good to see a graduate of Woodside doing the things that they love. So I just wanted to give them a little shout out. And then finally to Ms. Buffalo, Ms. Moore, thank you so very much for all that you do for the board and making us look good, and we appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Best. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to start out by thanking Ms. Buffalo, the Madam Clerk. You definitely keep me straight. I get pinged all the time. Hey, check your email. So appreciate that. I also like to thank my esteemed colleagues on the school board for a great job that you all are doing and will do in the future. Also, our new addition to the school board, Ms. Aguilar. I'm sure you've had fun thus far. I think she's a great asset. She's already proven herself to be, and I really enjoy working with you.
Thank you.
I participated in the RISE Mentor Group program last week. Probably one of the best mentor groups, programs I've been in. Thank you, Dr. Parker, for that lead on that. In fact, my son is in Washington, D.C. He had graduated from Howard, and a couple of guys saw the programs and things of this nature, so they're going to try to start something there in D.C., in the D.C. inner city school. So he'd probably be emailing you or calling you. Also, Councilman Harris invited me to participate in the Re-Up School Drive that he has started. This was his third year. We served over 250 kids. We had actually ran out of supplies, so we actually had kids from Yorktown. Some came from Hampton. So next year, we're going to make sure we get a lot of donations and make it bigger and bigger. Also, they had the counselors there from the schools, and each and every last one of them, or the group, said they really appreciate the hiring of the licensed clinical social workers, and that they have made a big impact, and they hope we have in our budget to hire more. All right, so just a nugget, Mr. Chairman. Okay, that's done. Re-up. Yeah, no, right? And I'm just going to leave with this quote, since that young lady inspired me to try to get back into my poetry. But no, this is from Sun Tzu, the great warrior that a lot of leadership corporations follow. And he states that if you have a 5-year plan, plant rice. If you have a 10-year plan, plant trees. But if you have a 100-year plan, invest in children. Okay. And that is the mindset that, again, I would say and say again, that we as a board need to take bold steps and ensure that we invest in our children. And sometimes that means having not so nice conversation with people. It's still an investment. So I just want to make sure that we stay on the edge, we keep things sharp, and be prepared to engage individuals that does not have our kids' interests at heart. And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Ms. Alger.
Wow, you really want me to? Okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be really long. I'm sorry. I'm going to beat you.
All right. We'll see. I get to go after you now.
I know you did in well.
I'm going to first start with Ms. Buffalo. Thank you so much for all that you've done. Truly helped me with my transition. I call her during different parts of the day, and she is always there. So thank you so much. I had a chance to visit 16 schools, met amazing leaders. It was so inspiring for me. And the best part was I got to see teachers in action, students learning, all of that you see as far as the data. the best part is when you see it happening and when it's coming to life. And that's, I had that opportunity and that blessing to see that with my own eyes. I plan to visit rest of the schools. I've got a couple more to visit, so my plan is to do it this week. And I also want to do a shout out to the folks from Heinz, the Spartans. First of all, I got this nice little fancy pen. Let me take this off, and you can't really see it, but it lights up really good. And I hear that you got one too.
I sure did.
But and what was neat was I got to attend a PTA meeting where the assistant principals were given the challenge of doing a project, a leadership project, and their project was to bring the community together. So to observe that was such an honor for myself. I've attended the RISE, the engineering, as well as the All-City Science and Engineering Technology forums, and it's been fabulous to see that. One of my best trips was to go to Orchid Baptist Church. So I went there because they partner with Palmer Elementary. And so what they do is they work in conjunction with the food bank. And the families are fed through the food bank. What was humbling to me was to see the number of Latino families that were standing in line receiving food, and for me to be able to speak to them in their language, in their own native language, and for us to talk about their children and their experience here in the United States as far as their learning. I visited Richmond today on behalf of the board advocating for the Aviation Academy, and I'm sure Douglas is going to speak about it, so I'm not going to, say any more about that. But I wanted to, we are doing everything we possibly can to make sure that we have that program up and running for the upcoming year. And I also spoke to Richmond legislators today about teacher compensation and the importance of making sure that teachers are compensated for their work, the work that they do. And that was just part of it, but I hope I got it all covered.
Okay.
But thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Ely.
Thank you. I want to also thank Ms. Buffalo for all she do for this board. She's definitely go beyond the call of duty to make sure we're taken care of and make sure we're on the right track. And I also want to thank everybody who did a presentation today. It was amazing. Even with the presentation we had at our work session, just the interaction with each other, to have the discussion was great. And also I'd like to thank again my Huntington family for being here and advocating for New Huntington Middle School. This board has spoken loud and clear to what we want, what direction we want our city to go in as far as our school, and we will continue to do what we need to do to make sure Huntington Middle School is and will be built. And I'd like to thank our city council for partnering with us and working with us on making sure we get the design done for Huntington Middle School. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ely. Mr. Brown.
All right. Well, tonight I want to definitely direct our attention to our upcoming budget. Before I do that, I want to thank Ms. Moore Buffalo as well for being just a fantastic and outstanding clerk. Really appreciate all of her efforts. As I taken on the role of being the Tidewater Regional Chairman, Ms. Buffalo has really taken on. I called it a promotion. She laughed when I told her she got promoted too as the clerk of the region as well. Without her assistance and help, we really would not be able to put on our regional networking forum event, which is going to occur March the 30th over at Smithfield High School. And Ms. Moore Buffalo has been instrumental in helping to put that whole program on. So I really want to publicly now thank her for all the work that she's been doing. We've had several meetings, right, on some Friday afternoons or Friday mornings when she could have otherwise been doing some other things. So I really thank her for that. Switching now in just terms of the budget, so I know that we're in budget season, and I want the board to hopefully stay focused on, we presented our priorities and the things that we feel like we needed at the last joint city council meeting, and just remain vigilant in pursuit of those priorities. And I mentioned at the last meeting my priority, which is we definitely want to get the counselors into the budget that we were not able to do last year. And I'm going to hold everyone account here that I'm going to count on the support that was promised to me, last year when we couldn't get them all, that we're going to get them all this year and get the counselors added into the budget, because that's going to make a big difference. And then as well, talked about that 3% raise for all the staff. I think that that's critically important in a time when we're in a teacher shortage, when we are in an up economy where folks have other alternatives. It is important for us to continue to keep the pedal to the metal in terms of continuing to push forward boldly with raises. And to anyone who is skeptical about moving forward in that regard, nothing beats a failure but a try. I didn't say that we had to get the raises because we're not in full control over the funding. Someone else has to, being city council, is going to have to cooperate with us on funding our cash capital, as they said that they would, because my proposal is to present our cash capital projects to city council, ask for that funding, and use that funding left over to fund our raises. They have to cooperate with that, but at least try. At least try. And I can sleep well at night or look people in the eye when I walk down the street if I've at least tried, and they said, well, did you ask? And don't presuppose a no before you even asked is what I would push forward to this entire board. Next, I'm going to shift the course to Denby Aviation Academy, which is first and foremost on my mind. As I mentioned the last time, the building flu has spread. So I told the Huntington alumni, I joked with them at the last joint meeting of City Council, hey, now you guys don't have to feel left out anymore. Now the building flu has spread up north, and now we're talking about shutting down the Denby Aviation Academy. And that is, according to plan, that is going to happen at the end of this school year. Not a maybe going to happen, we're going to talk about it. No, that's going to happen, okay, if things go according to plan. So what that means is that, in my mind, for sure, there should be a plan in place for replacing the Denby Aviation Academy before we close it. If there are any lessons learned from the closure of Huntington Middle School, it's have a plan in place for the replacement of the school prior to closing it. Again, whether you can fulfill the plan or not, at least try. And what was presented to us tonight is a path where we at least have some control over our destiny, over our timeline. Of course, yes, there has to be counterparts and approvals from the other side, but at least have that as an option to try. Now, we've heard that we're going to get more updates and more reports are going to be given in that April timeframe. Well, great. So as those updates are given, it's great that we'll have a policy in place in our back pocket such that we will have multiple options to pursue plans to replace the Denby Aviation Academy as fast as humanly possible. We don't want that building sitting there vacant for 3 years, as has been the case for Huntington Middle School. So I only want to bring people back. You don't have to go back far to know that history is a great predictor of the future. How long has it taken for us to even get to the point of talking about a design for Huntington Middle School? 3 years. Would you like to wait 3 years in discussions talking about trying to move forward with the design of a Denby Aviation Academy when we know we need the school now? No. Let's not wait for 3 years. As we talked about tonight, it took 7 years, over 7 years, to do the Scott Center. Do we want to wait 7 years for the replacement of the Denby Aviation Academy that we know we need in the North District? It prepares students for jobs in our community today, now. High-paying trade jobs in our community today, now. It's one of only, I believe, 5 in the entire country. It is a national resource that we have a Denby Aviation Academy. There are students and people from across the region who pay money to come study at the Denby Aviation Academy. All right, because what it offers is of such benefit to not only this community but to the region itself. So again, knowing that it's a vital resource, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait any longer than we absolutely have to replace that building. And I'm asking the board to come along with me in boldly moving forward with that process. We had a timeline laid out for us that March we could be hearing a policy proposal, and in April we could be voting on that policy and have that policy in place such that whatever comes from negotiations with council, we can pursue multiple options. So what I don't like is cutting off options before you even started, saying, well, we're just going to continue to pursue Again, a path that led to a 3-year back and forth on even discussing the design because you only had one option. On a path that was 7 years of back and forth to move out of a building. Again, that was a project that we didn't even ask for. The city council came to us and said, we would like you to move. We're going to go get the PPA. We're going to ask, we want you to leave this building. It took 7 years on a project that they wanted. Okay? So I don't want to wait. No, I do not have patience. No, I refuse to have patience in this process. And I refuse to have patience with our other buildings that are going to be in desperate need of repair and or replacement in the coming years. My patience level is done. It's been 6 years on the board, and prior to me coming on the board, it was decades prior to that. That's how the buildings got in the place that they are. Let's wait. Let's talk a little bit more. Let's give it a little bit more time. We're going back and forth. We're just almost there. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Let's have options. Put all the options on the table. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Vice Chair, Ms. Cyril Smalls.
Well, Ms. Buffalo, I thought you were here just for me. As much as you help and as much as you do for all of us, we just really do appreciate it. We do appreciate you keeping us in line as well. Thank you. I got to attend the RISE Empowerment Conference. Wow, what energy. It was neat to see the young men up that early and staying that late. They really just enjoyed the day being about them, and I was very glad to see that the district provided that for them, and it was a joy to be part of that. Please join me in writing letters to our legislators regarding the Aviation Academy, and also we're looking at the budget coming to us from the legislator. Teacher pay is a big contention there, but we still, as Douglas said, we do have to ask, and so those letter writings are not for naught. So please join me. If you need that information, I'm putting Ms. Buffalo on the spot. You can contact our office, and we'll let you know who your legislators are. And we even have form letters if you need some ideas on how to write that. Always near and dear to my heart are anything involving STEM. So the design challenge a few days ago was wonderful. One piece about it that just makes me giddy is that the Heritage High School students actually participate in putting that on. So they do the logistics for the competition, they run the competition, they support the students, and this is really a great example of integrated progressive learning, and our district is really doing a good job of that. So that's all for me today.
Well, good. Well, again, I'm the last person until this meeting's over, but there's great things happening in Newport News Public Schools, I must say. My meeting didn't stop last week. I had the opportunity to speak to my fellow board member, Mr. Douglas Brown, for an additional 4 hours and 6 minutes and 32 seconds in reference to Huntington. And so, as you say, Huntington will rise again. I want to say thank you. I had an opportunity on February the 7th, along with my fellow board member, Mr. Harris, to attend the Night to Dream, the Chivo Dream over in Virginia Beach. And I want to thank Miss Leanne for us inviting us over there. They're doing a good job. So that Chivo Dream model that was started here at Newport News, we are a leader. It has transpired to the other side of the water, and it was a standing crowd only. Very nice affair, and thank you, Mr. Harris, for joining me in that endeavor. Again, I did attend the RISE. I was not in the picture. I believe I was taking the pictures. But I was there from a long night from Virginia Beach at 12 o'clock at night. I was able to get back here to my house about 1, go to sleep, and get back up and back to Heritage High School to the RISE in the morning. That's what I call dedication, all for our students.
Indeed.
Again, thank you to city council members for the joint meeting. Though it's slow steps and it's baby steps, but we're stepping. we are moving forward. It's in the paper. I did see some news reporters here tonight. I guess they didn't hear all that they wanted to hear, so I guess they left. It was all positive. Again, Huntington will rise. Okay. Miss Buffalo Moore, how many times do I talk to you today? Oh, I think we talk about 4 or 5 times a day. So thank you for doing all that you do for not just our board, but especially for me, keeping me in line, texting me. Please answer your phone. Please look at your emails. Please give me a call. And she does that even after hours. So thank you very much for keeping us all. And I'll be remiss if I wouldn't say this, because I probably couldn't do it. My locks probably wouldn't work. But I want to do thank all our professional school counselors for Counselor Week. Thank them for all that they do. They're a vital part of educating our students. And then to the aviation, Denby Aviation. I'm surprised that Mr. Brown, you didn't say that, but if you saw the news earlier, a few days ago, there was a news article on us on Channel TV, Channel 13, I believe, and talking about all the great things that are happening at Denby Aviation Academy, where we have our students are actually building lockers for the International Space Station. And right now they are building 2 of these lockers, which will house clothing. It will house mice that they use in experiment. So they're going to do 2 this year, and hopefully they're going to eventually be able to build 5 of these each and every year. So the Aviation Committee, Aviation Academy is doing great things. Actually, we're going to be out of space. We're out of space. So, you know, the limits are great here in Newport News Public Schools. So again, I would like to thank that. I was not here just after our meeting. We had the unfortunate timely death of our officer, and I was not here at the time. I was traveling, but I hear that she was a beacon of hope in our South District and throughout the city. I would like to give us maybe about 5 minutes, a moment of silence for her, for all the great things that she did for our community and for our students. So if we could take 5 seconds of
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Yes. And thank you for her and her family, the school board and the school community. Well, she will surely be missed. And that being said, again, what a wonderful, Mr. Brown, you're correct. Mr. Harris, you're correct. 2 outstanding reports today. Ms. Brooks, I'm sure that the faculty, this faculty and staff, I know, will love you on that long Christmas break again. That is scheduled for us to approve at our next meeting. And the data are just unbelievable, Mr. Brown, you're correct. It's amazing that we can pinpoint each child and where they are as it relates to their achievement, and that we can close this achievement gap. And every child was counted. I mean, I've not heard that before. This is outstanding work that Dr. Parker, your staff, the cafeteria workers, the bus drivers, the custodians, and social workers, all those help to make Newport News a school of options and a school of, that I'm proud that I live here in the city, and I'm proud that my 2 daughters graduated from the division. And that being said, I believe if there's no more comments, I will bring this meeting to adjourn.
Long one.